It's the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast as we move into the later days of March and obviously into the Sweet 16 this evening. We'll do a podcast to cover all the games as we head towards the Final Four. 4 days of basketball coming up, 4 games today, 4 games tomorrow, 2 of them at the Garden. And then, of course, the regional finals on the weekend, and then next weekend, the Final Four from Houston. And right now, we could be we're heading towards a couple of real collision course games that should be fun. Alabama should dominate the South. There's no question about that. East, all 4 teams can play. Michigan State, Kansas State should be a terrific game. Tennessee's playing well, and they're very physical. They've overcome the loss of their point guard. And then you have a couple of matchups that I've been looking for before the tournament started. I've been looking for a UCLA UConn regional final out there, so you can guess who I like in those 2 games. And then I think it's going to be Houston and Texas. I thought so, and that would be one of the games of the tournament in the regional final. That would be one of the classic games between 2 teams that either one could win the national championship. And I also think Alabama went through their rough spots with Miller, and I think Houston went through their rough spots with their injuries, especially to Sassa. They overcame it. They were facing elimination down 10 at half to Auburn in Birmingham. Put up a second half that was for the ages. They outscored them 50-23. I mean, an incredible second half, an impressive, a championship-level second half, and that showed you that they have a lot of basketball left in them. Let's look at the games of this evening. The Garden will be in action. Michigan State against Kansas State. I toyed with going with Kentucky or Michigan State all the way to the regional final. I went with Kentucky over Michigan State. It could have gone either way. I thought it would be one of the veteran teams. I think Michigan State's going to beat Kansas State, but I'll tell you this. If you're going there tonight or if you're just going to be watching tonight, do not miss the show that the little guard from Kansas State will most likely put on. He put on an incredible display, an absolutely brilliant display in the round of 32 game. I mean, to beat Kentucky. It was just a brilliant game. Kentucky got beat by a 5'8" guard who is, without question, one of the better players in the country. Marcus Knoll, 5'8" from Harlem. He has not been back to the city for 3 years. This year he averaged 17 points and 8 assists, and he put on a show in the Kentucky game. He really did. 27 points, 9 assists, some of the most dazzling passes I've seen in the NCAA tournament in the last decade. And I think he will, going home to the Garden, this kid from Harlem, a 5'8" point guard from Harlem, in the Garden tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if he lights it up, which makes it a fun game against Michigan State. I think Michigan State's the better team. Izzo's great in these games. This is a very even game. If Kansas State can beat Kentucky, they can beat Michigan State, but I think Michigan State wins. But I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to the game that Noel will play tonight. Noel and Johnson are 2 big-time players. Noel, I think, was voted a third-team All-America this year. He put on a show against Kentucky, and he was the difference in that game without any question. He hit a couple of dagger baskets late, including 1-3 that was just devastating to Kentucky. Florida Atlantic was not impressive against FDU. They are a good team. They won 30 games this year. Problem is Tennessee is a bunch of men. And as long as they get solid play out of the backcourt, they are going to be very hard to handle. They absolutely devastated Duke. They beat the heck out of Duke. And Vescovi was unbelievable. He hit dagger threes. He hit dagger baskets. He put on a show. And then late, they got a great performance from one of their forwards who really, was not that big a scorer all year. Wound up getting 27 points, 10 of 13. He scored 17 points in a row in that game. went crazy. So if they get the kind of shooting they got last game, where they shot 40 from three, I can tell you right now, if Tennessee shoots 40 from three in any game they play in this bracket, they're going to win, because everything else they do well. They're a bunch of men. They're vicious on the backboards. They play great defense. They're incredibly physical. They're experienced. They're going to be a handful. And I think Tennessee and Michigan State will play in the regional final. I want to see Kansas State play. I'm fascinated by the little guard, but I think Michigan State and Tennessee are going to advance to the regional final. On the other side, we have really classic matchups. UConn's a legitimate championship-level team. They have that kind of talent. But beware of Arkansas. Arkansas just beat Kansas. Arkansas is a team with a lot of physical talent. They can play any way UConn wants to play. They can play outside with UConn. They can play up and down with UConn. They can play, and they want to play faster than UConn does, and they can play inside with UConn. They are a legitimate team. UConn deserves to be favored. I think UConn will win the game, but I think it will be a tough game. And be careful. Do not overlook Arkansas, because they're a dangerous, dangerous team. And then you have the classic Gonzaga-UCLA game. I told you before the tournament started that if UCLA had been healthy, if they had all their players, I would have picked them to win the championship. They have one player who's been banged up, and they have, obviously, they lost their defensive player of the year, the Pac-10 defensive player of the year, or Pac-12, whatever you want to get fit, the way these conferences expand. UCLA, if they were at full strength, I would pick them. I still picked them to get to the Final Four, and I think they beat Gonzaga tonight. And I'm looking forward to a UCLA-UConn game. I think if we get UCLA-UConn and Houston, Texas, we will have two of the great regional finals we've had in a long time. I respect Gonzaga. I think UCLA wins. And then tomorrow night, we got more lopsided games, but it'll be interesting to see. We got Creighton playing Cinderella Princeton. You got San Diego State trying to see if they can upset Alabama, and they'll be big dogs to do that. You have Houston taking on Miami, and Miami's guards are dangerous. That's a dangerous game, although I think Houston will survive. And then Texas against Xavier. And again, Xavier's got a lot of talent. Xavier's not going to be afraid in that game. The problem is they don't play defense great, and Texas plays both ends of the floor. Xavier really plays one end of the floor. They're an offensive team. But when their offense is on and they're passing the ball, which they do really well, and then hitting their threes, they can beat anybody. They're a dangerous team, and Miller's a good tournament coach. He always has been. Always has been. So that's where you are for the tournament. We'll update it for you daily, every day. I hope your bracket, if you put the brackets in on Bet Rivers, you're playing against me for the whole bracket. I don't know where you stand. I have 3 of the Final Four teams in. Remember, there were a million upsets. I have 3 of the Final Four, and I have my championship team and my second team. To have a decent bracket, you're going to have both teams in the final, which means I'll have to have Alabama over Houston. I have UCLA going also, and then I lost Duke out of the other bracket, out of the East. Out of the East, most people lost their teams already, because you have most of the teams that were favored in that bracket, which were Duke, Marquette, Purdue. They're all gone. Kansas State was the 3, but they didn't get a lot of attention. Michigan State, Tennessee, Florida Atlantic. So you're going to get a stranger out of that bracket no matter what. A team that a lot of people didn't pick. Out of the other 3, obviously, you still have some favorites, some chalk still there. So we'll see how that unfolds. All right, emails. 1 question, 1 comment. We'll get to your emails. Then I'll have a couple of thoughts about the Bombers. After that, let's see if it's touched on in the email so it's not redundant, because I haven't seen the emails yet. I don't look at the emails until we do the show, so I want to be spontaneous. Remember, Mike Francesa podcast at gmail.com. Peter starts. I'm a Providence grad. Can you offer your thoughts on Cooley going from PC to Georgetown? Always thought he was a dominant recruiter, but his teams tended to fold in big spots. Listen, He did a good job at Providence. He made Providence relevant. He had them competitive. That's about all you're going to do there. He never had great teams. He had good teams. He had one team, last year's team, which I thought was a legitimate team. The move, I know a lot of people looked at it as a lateral move. It's obviously a step up in some regards, otherwise he wouldn't have made the move. It probably is financially. Maybe he wanted to just change scenery. I don't know why he made the move, but he stayed in conference and he went to Georgetown. And what you know now is Georgetown and St. John's are going to be relevant again because you got Pitino at St. John's and you got Cooley at Georgetown, and they're both going to bring in players. And we'll wait to see. Providence will hire a smart coach because Mike Tranghese whispers in their ear, and Mike knows what he's doing. So you know they'll hire a smart young coach. Joseph, is there anything the Yankees can do to move Donaldson? LeMahieu makes much more sense at third since Glaber will be at second. Let's be honest. The Yankees have a glut in the infield, especially a glut when they're trying to move Volpe in. And let's be honest, Volpe's trying to make a real case, and he's already made it, to be here. Whether Volpe opens the season, and I think he will open the season with the Yankees, and here's the bottom line. If you're bringing Volpe north, you start him at shortstop and play him every day. You don't put him on the bench. So if Volpe's here, and I think he will be, and if he's not, he's going to be back in 2 weeks. The bottom line is, if he's here, he's playing every day, which opens things up for him, but closes things down for a lot of infielders. Let's be honest. The move the Yankees need to make is they need to trade. They can't unload Donaldson. They're going to have to get rid of him. They're going to have to give him away. And they're going to have to buy some of the contract, eat some of the contract. There's no way around it. They made a bad deal. No one wants him. I know he had a couple of homers the other day. It doesn't matter. Nobody wants him. The guy they need to trade, and they have some value, is they need to trade Gleyber Torres. Let's be honest. The Yankees don't want to pay him anyway. He's a good player. He's got a lot of value. Is he what we thought he was going to be? Is he going to be a superstar? Probably not. But he's a good baseball player. Let's be honest. You can't say he's not a good baseball player. He is. There's really nothing he can't do. And he's going to be doing it somewhere else because the Yankees aren't going to pay him. So he's the guy you need to trade, and then that opens things up. LeMahieu has to be in there every day. I would have LeMahieu in there every day, and I would have Judge batting third with Rizzo batting fourth and then Stanton batting fifth. That's what I would do. I don't like him sat in second. I'd rather have him batting third. And I think LeMahieu has to be at the top of the order, and he has to play every day. So the Yankees have a glut. They have to work it out. They had to get rid of a couple of veteran guys, and they got to make some moves here. But remember, the push is for Volpe now. And the Yankees are talking Volpe up like he's, a cross between Jeter and Mantle. And let's not overdo it because it's not fair to the kid. But he's done everything right so far. He's got a 400 on base percentage. He's already stole 5 bases. He's shown power, the whole deal. He looks the part. Kevin, do you think MSG Network new streaming service will be a success, and do you think other sports will follow with their own stream? Listen, we are in a time here where there is a great change we are undergoing a tremendous change from a technological standpoint to digital and to streaming, and we are undergoing a tremendous move from the regional packages. How are the regional packages going to work when you deal with the national packages and what the teams can do individually? This is going to be a new world order. How it is going to unfold and how it is going to work is going to take some time because they're not sure how to package these products anymore. They're really not. They're not sure what the best bang for them is and what the best bang for the consumer is. But let's just be honest, everything is changing dramatically. And streaming is here, and digital is here, and the future is that. So you're going to undergo tremendous change in all this stuff. And there's no reasons why teams will not have. Now, NFL package is different, remember, because the national package rules and the teams get a fortune from the national package. So everything is off that. Teams are selling only the secondary and tertiary products. They're selling their radio, they're selling their preseason, they're selling some sundry things around the fact that all the games are part of the national package. That's football. The other sports are different. These teams are going to have their own packages. How that works inside the bigger product is going to remain to be seen. How you're going to pay for these and how they're going to be packaged, again, all remains to be seen. We're going through a technological phase here that has to be reckoned with. And it will be. It's just going to take a little time. Do you think the heavy usage of the three ball will fade and the traditional half-court offense and inside-out game will return? No. The value of the game now is in shooting the three, taking advantage of the three, and then going to the basket to get what you consider short twos, very high percentage twos, or fouls. There is no mid-range game anymore. The mid-range shot is a bad shot. The worst shot in basketball now is the mid-range jumper. It's a bad possession. It doesn't pay as a possession. There are guys who make a living at it, but it doesn't pay as a possession. And you notice how astronomical the number is, okay? Just take a given night in the NBA. Just take any night. I'll take last night as an example, okay? First of all, you see the scores of the games are higher. Of course they're higher. The Knicks shot 43s last night. The Heat shot 28. So there were 68 threes shot in that game. Nuggets and the Wizards. The Nuggets shot 32. The Wizards shot 26. Same ballpark. Warriors and Mavericks. Warriors shot 39, 40. So they shot 80 threes in that game. 80 threes. Think about that. The three was a novelty. Now they're shooting 80 threes. You've seen a tremendous escalation in the number of points scored in the NBA all of a sudden. You noticed that. I think you've obviously noticed it this year. Go to another game just to see if you can find a low. The Bucks and the Spurs. Yeah? 82 threes. The Grizzlies and the Rockets. 73s. Suns and the Lakers. Now, that's with the Lakers having an inside presence. Lakers took 17 threes, a very low number, made half of them. Suns shot 31. 8 for 17 is a very low number on a given night. But the average game, you're looking 60 to 70 threes as an average game now. That's the way the game is played. It's not going to change because that's what makes sense. It is drive it, dunk it, transition game, get fouled, get to the rim, or shoot the three. Shoot the three, secondary break, shoot the three, transition game, shoot the three in the half court off the skips, off the driving kicks, okay, or off anything, off isolation, off pick and roll. It doesn't matter. You can get the three off anything they do now. That's the game they play. Is it going to change? No, it's not going to change. That is the game, and it's not going to change. Harry asks, do you think Daniel Jones can do what Eli did? I don't think you can count on that. What Eli did is historic. There are only 5 quarterbacks who have 2 Super Bowl wins and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. Only 5 in history. The first 4 are in the Hall of Fame. Eli is a waiting call. That's it. That's, guys, 5 guys. 5 players. So you're asking Daniel Jones to become the 6th. That's asking too much. Let him win a Super Bowl. If Daniel Jones wins a Super Bowl, I will consider his career a success with the Giants. As he wins 2, I'll be stunned. In today's sports, who is your favorite owner? Well, if you listen to this show or you've listened to my shows through the years, you know I have an affection for the Tampa Bay Rays owner because he bought a franchise that if you weren't as smart as he is, and listen, he's a financial genius. He retired very young after a brilliant financial career, bought the franchise. I'm, of course, talking about Stu Sternberg. He's comes on the show all the time, delightful guy, brilliant financial guy, and he's one of my favorite owners. I got some other owners I like. I'm very fond of John Mara, always have been. I actually like Jerry Jones a lot. I always got along well with Jerry. You know, when Bill was there, he was always great to me. He's a very gracious man. I understand he can be a handful on a lot of different ways, and he's got a huge ego, and he wants a lot of publicity. I understand that. But I've always liked him, and he's always been very, very nice to me. So, I'm just going on that. I enjoyed your commentary on Willis Reed and his passing. I think that was a time where you needed to have some age on you if you were going to give. And I don't know if a lot of shows, I have to be honest, any show I flipped on, and I flipped a couple on, none of them were talking about Reed, and I thought it would dominate. I don't know if it did, and I just missed it because I don't listen to sports talk very much, but I never heard anybody talking about Willis. And I thought it would dominate because I thought a lot of people who were older Knick fans and older from that generation, that was going to be something that was really going to hit them hard. So maybe it just wasn't enough people on the air who actually understood what it meant and lived the part that could talk, because there's many remnants of that. It starts with the Bush trade and it goes right through the second championship. So that's where you need someone who's been around, myself, Dog, someone like that, who can give you some historical perspective on what Reed meant to the city. And he meant a great, great deal to the city. It was a special time. It was a great team. It's one of the great teams in the history of this town. It's one of the most beloved teams in the history of this town. Why? Because this team, and I would recommend to any of you who want good sports writing, an old friend of mine, and a guy who took me under his wing when I was young, Pete Axelm, wrote a great book called The City Game. And what he equated to was what was happening with the Knicks and what happened in the great city game, talking about the great city players from Harlem, the GOAT, the helicopter, etc., down the line. It is a masterpiece of sports writing. It's called The City Game. I would highly recommend. I'm sure you could still get a copy somewhere. Written by the brilliant Pete Axelm, who was a great, great sports writer and was a good friend of mine. When I was a kid and I went to the Final Four, if we were in a town that had a racetrack, Axe and I would go to the racetrack on the off day. So if we were there on Friday, we went to practice, then we'd go to the racetrack. Or Saturday, we had a couple hours to kill, we'd go to the racetrack before we went to the games, which would start at 5:30, depending on what time I had a report. But he and I would go to the racetrack together. And he loved the handicap. And he liked cheap horses because he liked to see the post parades of the cheap claimers, and he thought he could pick winners based on how they warmed up. That was his art. It was great. I loved going, because he was a real horse guy. I loved going to the track with him. I used to go to the track with him. He used to come into the viewing center and watch the games with me. A couple of times it was Axe, myself, Hunter Thompson for a little while. I mean, so we had some characters there. In the last 20 to 25 years, who is the one Yankee you wish they had never had on the team that was added? And who is the one player that you would have absolutely loved to have, but it never happened? Well, I don't want to be really offensive to Stanton, but I did not want Stanton on the team for a variety of reasons, and I thought it was going to clog the team up. From a lineup standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, from a right-handed standpoint. That was my problem. He is a very talented guy in his own right. He is a very powerful hitter. But it's just not what I love. So he would be the guy on that standpoint. Who did I want, or who did I want them to get? Well, to be honest with you, I really, for a long time, wanted them to get Cedric Mullins from the Orioles. I thought he would have been perfect in the leadoff spot and in center field. I wanted that guy for a while. And it didn't happen. That's a guy I really wanted. I thought for a while they were going to get him. I really wanted him. He would be the guy. And Stanton would be the other guy. With the exception of Aaron Judge last season, Mike Trout has been the best player in baseball. Do you think he's been worthy of the Mickey Mantle comparisons, or is he simply a great player on a bad team? He's a great player. I don't know if anybody's worthy of Mickey Mantle comparisons. That's pretty deep stuff. But Mike Trout's a great talent. There's no question about it. And he has been on a bad team. People are going nuts about Anthony Trout at bat. Let me say this. I don't call it epic because I don't care about the baseball classic. I wanted to see that inning. My son Harrison was really into the baseball classic. So I was waiting for Anthony to come in. I watched that inning, and I was really unhappy that Betts hit into the double play because I wanted to see Trout come up with somebody on. It would have made Anthony throw from the stretch, and I would have liked to have seen that at bat that way. But he had electric stuff in the at bat. I mean, he threw 100 miles an hour. He threw a wicked slider. I mean, it was impressive. There's no question about that. Always a advantage pitcher, though. Remember, 3 out of 10 is good in baseball. 3 out of 10 puts you in the Hall of Fame. So it's not like, it's either 50-50 Trout's going to get him. It's not 50-50. Pitcher wins more than 50% of the time. We know that. Nobody hits 500. Matt, what do you think about the Jets trading up in the draft to get one of the quarterbacks? Would that be better than guaranteeing a 40-year-old quarterback a lot of money? Not if you want to win tomorrow. I don't think there's a quarterback in this draft that I look at and say, I know he's going to win. I know he's going to take you there. I don't think you can. Aaron Rodgers is an all-time great. You can't promise me one of these quarterbacks can step in and start right now. So I don't think one equates to the other. I do not. Thank you for the emails. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning. Enjoy your day.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.